Recording in progress.
Okay, good morning. We are going to look at the report card process in student information for middle school, high school. And I know I have a few elementaries that also print the R700. So prior to printing report cards, there's a lot that we're going to set up. So there's several things, several procedural checklists that we're going to go through. So hopefully you guys have these, but all of our resources do come from the Learning Center. So in the Learning Center, so clicking on the question mark, in the Learning Center under Student Information, and then under Procedural Checklists. Okay. If you click right here where it has the see all 9 articles, there are some instructional videos. So there's a couple in here. One is on creating GPA sets, which we're going to go over today, but it's about a 2-3 minute video. So you can also look at that if you forget anything that I say, but we are also recording. So you can always go back to our recording as well. But in the procedural checklist, we have 3 that we are looking at under the student section. So we are looking at the processing of report cards right here. And then we have our honor roll and our GPA, which I lost. There it is. Okay. So those are the 3 that we are going to look at today. I also am going to share a document with you. It is on the student information home screen. Down here at the documents, there is one called Report Cards for ParentAccess. We are going to go through all of this, but this is available for you if you want to print out. It is a PowerPoint that you can print out the slides so you can see them a little bit bigger, but that is always posted there for you. Like I said, we will go through all of those steps that are in this PowerPoint as well. Okay, so the first item that we are going to look at is actually in our report card processing procedural checklist. So we're going to go through this part first, and then we'll go into our GPAs and our honor rolls. Any of my elementaries, the GPA and the honor roll, well, the GPA part might not be applicable for you, but the honor rolls, if you're printing out merit roll, honor roll, things like that, so we'll get through that, but it might not apply to you. So looking at our report card procedural checklist, we are going to look at all the background information, making sure everything is set up correctly. Now, at this point in time, some of these things that are in here, we're not going to change. We're already at report card season. We're at the end of our 9 weeks, getting ready to print our report card. So we don't want to be changing our marks and things like that. So the first thing that we're going to look at is under our management screen. It is our marks to see how our district is grading. So I am at my district. I'm going to go to the high school. This is going to be my primary building for today. So I'm going to go to the high school level. I'm going to go to management, school administration, and then all the way at the bottom, there is student information options. Some of you might not have access to this. If you don't, that's okay. Oh no, you guys didn't migrate yet. Never mind. You're fine. So we come here maybe at the beginning of the August, beginning of the school year, end of the school year. This is where we finalize our schedules. So again, we're not here that often, but what we're just going to look at is our marks tab. Most of you are alpha marks. Do the reset. Georgia, you are at H-Tech. You guys are numeric marks. So yours will say numeric, but everybody else should be Loudonville. I think Loudonville is online. You guys are also numeric, or yes, numeric. So this is how you're grading, whether it's alpha or numeric. However, looking at our GPAs, we can set it up alpha or numeric depending as well. So this is just telling you how the district is grading. So our next thing that we are going to look at are courses. So you can go through the whole breadcrumb trail, or you can just go to your go-to box and type in courses, which I like to use my go-to box because I don't know the whole breadcrumb trail for everything. Okay. Looking at courses, if you just hit search, you're going to see all of the courses that are available for your district. Okay, if you want to look at a specific course, you can type in the course name up here at the top. So looking at the courses, there's a couple things that we are going to look up or look at in the course itself. So I'm just going to pick English 9 as my course. So I'm going to click on this edit pencil. Now, at this point in time, you're probably not adding any new courses unless it might be like an ungraded course. Some districts make like a coaches class, so coaches can have access to like their team roster. You might have a caseload class, but a lot of districts already have these created, so you don't have to create them at this point in time. So I'm just going to go into edit one so I can look at a few things. Okay. So our course code is based on your district. So however your district sets it up, some set it up with letters at the beginning, some have numbers, some, kind of go with the grade levels. So it all depends, whatever course code you decide. So that is your choice. The course name itself is what flows over into GradeBook. So this is what the teacher sees on their GradeBook screen. So that's the important one, to make sure it's something that makes sense. You don't want to name it something that is not going to make sense to your teachers. Okay. And then the abbreviation and short name, usually those are very similar. But what we're going to look at are some of these things down here on the general tab. Okay. So one being is high school credit. Okay. So any of our classes that is for credit, we want to make sure that is checked. Now we have a coaches class or we have a caseload class. We are not going to want to include that for high school credit because they're not getting graded for that. So this one is important. Any of my middle school, if a middle school student is taking an Algebra 1 class, a VOEG class, anything that they're going to get high school credit for, we want to make sure that that is checked at the middle school level as well. Okay. And then, of course, you want to make sure that the course is active. So if it is assigned to students at this point in time, it is an active class. And then the other one you want to look at is in update history. So if that is checked, that means that it will go over to the student's course history. And there's a whole separate training on course history. Okay, but that one's also important. And that's something that you can choose when you are running your report cards to include the update history. On the marks tab is another important check mark. That is our include in GPA. So if this is a core class and we want to make sure that it's included in the GPA, which our English should be, we want to make sure that that is checked, as well as the print on report card. Okay, so those are two important ones for printing out our report cards. We'll talk about some of these in more detail, but our level of difficulty, also known as difficulty points. So that is if you have any weighted classes, and you can see I have AP classes, CCP classes, and weighted classes set up in my district. So this is my fake district here. You might have something different. You might have them coded differently. We'll get into creating those. We also have a GPA add-on. We do have one district that is using this. This is a little bit different than our difficulty points. Our difficulty points, what we know as a weighted GPA. So that would be like our, geez, now you're making me choke, Scott. Our difficulty points would be like a CCP class being on a 5-point scale versus a 4-point scale. So it's looking at a totally different grading scale versus the marks that we have in student information. Where our add-on points is if the student receives a certain grade in the class, they automatically get additional points added to that GPA, where the difficulty points calculates the GPA that gets added on after the GPA is determined. Okay. And then however many credits, that's an important thing as well. Okay. Our next tab is our miscellaneous. And the only thing I'm really going to look at in here is making sure that the course type is set up correctly. We want classes to be classes, CCP to be CCP, and so forth. A lunch needs to be a lunch, so it's not being used as class time. And then the other thing is the grade levels that it can accommodate. Okay, so a lot of our tickets do come down to grade levels because they're not selected correctly or not selected at all. Even though this is a required area with the asterisk, I've seen some courses that don't have any grade levels associated with them, and then it's not calculating in the GPA and so forth. Okay. So when you are looking at that, you're like, oh, wow, I have a lot of courses. I don't want to have to sit here and go through all of these to make sure that they're, high school credit, that their, update history is checked, that they're included in the GPA. So there's some different reports that we can run to look at all of our courses to make sure that they are set up correctly. So one of them is our CRSE report. So if you just in the go-to type in CRSE and then hit enter, it's going to take you into your course curriculum report. So this is nice because the criteria that you pick for this is what you want. You can pick up to 10 different fields. You can pick up to 10 different fields that you can print in this report. So you can see here, I'm just going to leave most of my stuff at the left, but I'm going to come down here to fields to display. And this is where I am going to pick and choose. So if I want to see so right now I have include in GPA, I have the level of difficulty included. Let's see, I want to include in update history. And I think I had include in GPA, I had that, and then is high school credit was my other one. And I might already have that one. Is high school credit. Okay. So I have those selected. And then I can just run this. It's going to sort it by my course name. I'm going to hit submit. And it is going to, if this is your first time running a report, it will automatically pop up. If not, I have to go into my settings and go to my management screen. So here is my CRSE report. And then you can see it's going to list all of my courses. So it's going to tell me what the course code is, the course name, what grade levels on that miscellaneous tab. Okay. Is it college or including credit? Yes or no? Is it included in the GPA? Yes or no? And is it update history? Yes or no? So these are pretty important to see. So if I'm looking at something like this, oh, this one's not high school credit and this one's not update history. Well, if I look at this, this is my coach's class, and that's okay. But we want to make sure that nothing, none of our core classes set for our students are set to no. So again, quick way to kind of go through, make sure everything that is not calculating the credit is a course that shouldn't be. Okay. So that is the CRSE report. The other one that we can look at is in the analytic hub. So I'm going to go to my analytics hub. I have it favorite. So I have it starred. You can star up to 5 different analytic hub reports. So it is called course detail. And I believe it's under scheduling. And then here is your course detail. And again, I have it starred. And again, you can star up to 5. And if you're not sure where it's at, you can always search for it up here in the box. So if I go to my course detail, this is great. I do like this report because it has everything. But again, it has everything. So there's a lot to this report. So if I'm looking at my high school for 25-26, so this is a very wide report. Like I said, it has everything. It's all the course details for that course. But I can export this to Excel. So if I want to sort it by, and work on it in Excel, I can. But some of the same things. Is high school credits? Yes or no? Okay. Is it in the update history? Yes or no? That's what we were looking at. And then include in GPA. Is it yes or no? So those things are on here as well. The CRSE just kind of condenses things. One other report, and I don't believe that's in the document. I like this report. It's the R807. So it kind of gives you the teacher and the course and so forth. So if you want to look at this report, you can pull it by grade level. You can pull it by course terms. I'm just going to print all of my courses and say submit. Again, it's going to go into my management screen. Might take a second. So this is just going to show again, my courses, my course ID, my course name, but now it's showing all the additional sections that I have. Okay, so our other ones were just showing the courses itself. This is showing all the individual sections, who the teacher is, what period of day it is, and then how many students are enrolled in it. Okay, so this isn't giving the details of, is it, include in GPA, update history, and so forth, but it is giving you some details about the course itself. So now that we have the courses set, now we want to look at a student. So I'm going to pull up my student, Corey. So I'm going to look at his profile. So we want to make sure that everything is set up correctly. So when we register our students, a lot of these things are checked. So I'm going to go to my student profile. I'm going to go to my additional tab. Those things that we just talked about being on the report are here as well for the student. Do I want to include this student in the honor roll? Do I want to include them in ranking? Do I want them to have a GPA? So if a student is not getting a GPA, a lot of times this is the case. They're not checked here. And we have seen cases where last year they were checked and then this year all of a sudden they're not checked, but they do need to be checked. So just like the courses, you're not going to want to go through all of your students, bless you, in your district one by one to make sure that these things are checked. So there is a way that we can check that by going to our easy query, go to reports and our SIS student search. This is great for all things. Okay, but what we are looking for are our include in honor roll, include in GPA. I already have this created and saved, but we'll go through those tabs. Okay, so our first tab is our field criteria, our filter criteria. We're not going to change anything in that. We're going to look at our field selection. So to get there, you do have to click on the next arrow. So we're going to click on next. In the field selection, my first is selecting my student. So I want to see their first name, last name. If you want their student ID, you can bring that in. If you have them by homerooms, you know, you can pull in and sort them by homeroom teachers, whatever. But then our next tab, the enrollment tab, don't click on next, just click on that tab. We are going to look at their building grade and then include in GPA. And if you want to say include in honor roll, because that's another big one, we can check that as well. And then all of the others, there's nothing in there that I need. I don't want addresses or anything like that, student emails. EMIS would be from the student's profile. And then we don't need transportation information. So we're going to click on the next to get to the summary, and it's going to say, hey, we're looking at first name, last name, student, include in GPA, include in honor roll. So then I can download this to a CSV file. So an Excel file, a spreadsheet. I'm going to download it and hit finish. So then what it does is it creates a spreadsheet for me. And if you're not a spreadsheet user, Excel is very simple to filter. So I'm going to turn on my filters. And then include in GPA is right here. So I can say, okay, I only want to see the no's. So these students are marked with no's and include GPA. So I can go to that student's profile and I can update their record. So if I look at Betty Boop, so put Betty in context, look at her profile on the additional tab, and I would see that none of those are checked. So then I can check them and I can save. Okay. Fake kids. Some districts have fake kids. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want them in there, but not really. You know, it depends how you guys do your special ed. So if your special ed is moving on, you might not want if they're a fifth year senior, you might not want them included in GPA. So you would uncheck it. But very rarely are they not checked. But that easy query screen is going to show you any student that is not. Okay. So now that we got our students all situated, now we need to make sure our marks are set correctly. So in the go-to box, I am going to type in marks. And I'm going to go to the marks menu. So there's a couple things on here. So the mark types, we do this, but you'll see how you are grading. So you can see I have an average, I have exams, finals, grading periods, and interims. So maybe next year you might not be doing exams. So some schools are getting away from exams. So during the SYI process, we'll make sure that these don't carry over. Okay. So again, this is something that we set up for you based on what you need and to set up for your marking patterns. Back to the marks menu. Another one that I'm just going to talk quickly about are the marks groups. A lot of you don't use this, but the combined marks groups, you can create these. It is used in a few screens, but you can see, you know, if I want to include, this only works if all of your A's are worth 4.0. So some districts have A plus, A minus, and they're all worth 4.0. If you have an A plus, that's 4.0, and an A minus, that's 3.7, this isn't going to work. Okay, so that's why a lot of districts don't use this, because you guys filter down more and adjust the point value based on the pluses and minuses. So I'm going to go back to the marks menu and we'll look at the marks itself. So looking at the marks, so you can see here, I use the pluses and minuses. Okay, they are not in order, so be careful, because you can see here B minus, B plus. It's because of the symbols, so that's how it alphabetizes them over here. Okay, so the mark and the mark name are typically the same. The EMIS grade, okay, this is what is reported to EMIS. There are no pluses and minuses, so all of your B's are going to be worth an EMIS mark or EMIS grade of B. Okay. Our point value is the important one. Even with our alpha districts, a letter grade has to have a point value in order to do that calculation. So please don't change these at the moment, because we're already into the school year. Okay. So, but these should be set according to your grading scale. Usually the grading scale is in your student handbook. We have had districts come in here in the past and change this, but they don't tell us. And then this is a different grading scale than what is in GradeBook. This grading scale does not integrate into GradeBook, because GradeBook allows for multiple grading scales. SIS does not. SIS has one, and this is what we're looking at. We have options to do difficulty points or add-on points, but one grading scale. So because GradeBook has multiples, it does not integrate. What does integrate are the marks. So these marks would be available for the teacher. So if you decided that you want to allow the teachers to give an N for not complete or some reason, it would have to be added here, and that will integrate over to GradeBook. Okay. So your point values should match, again, that student grading scale. If you are a numeric district, you would have the min and the max. If you are not a numeric district, it is okay if they are blank. Okay. If you are a numeric district with the min and max, there can be no gaps. So you can see here, I go from 96.49 to 96.50. I'm not just doing 9.4 to 9.5. I have to go out 2 decimal places. Again, no gaps. Okay. If it's an alternate mark, okay, which a lot of us don't really use, but that is an option, is earned credit. Okay, so are they getting credit for this? Okay, so something like a pass fail. So passing, yes, they would get credit for it because they passed the class without an A, B, or C, but they got a passing grade, so they get the credit for it. But include in GPA, okay, so something like our F, so it's not going to be an earned credit because obviously they did not pass, but it is going to affect their GPA. Okay, and then something like incomplete, it's going towards neither. Yes.
I created this grade and it was giving us an error, and it was like for kids who moved in at the end of the semester, 2 weeks or whatever, so they were only in an elective for 2 weeks. So what do other districts give for a grade for that? I mean, they, you know, if they're at the end of the semester, they don't really get credit, because I put a grade no credit, and I just didn't mark any of the boxes, and it gave an EMIS error. Can I just do unsatisfactory for that, or?
Yeah, but why are you giving them a grade at
Because
this?
like if they move in from another school and they want to be in this is what happened. So the Career Center kids decided not to go back to the Career Center second semester.
Okay,
Our superintendent made him come to school the last week of our semester. He said, just put him in the classes that they'll be in the next semester. Well, I had to put him in the class, but they didn't really get credit. They were only in there for a week. Or if they move in at the end of the semester and take chef, but didn't have chef at their old school.
well,
So-
but the teacher itself can exclude them from any assignment grades.
You can just exclude them from a grade altogether
A teacher can, yes, in the grade book.
and have no grades.
For
So-
that, yes. So then that, so if the assignment, so say that last week they give 2 assignments, the teacher would just exclude them. So when they go to do their report card
Mhm.
screen, there would be no grade to populate in that report card screen. So it'd be blank.
So they just leave it blank.
Yeah, or incomplete.
Our incompletes have turned to X after 2 weeks, so that's why I know, according to our,
Got it.
so I didn't want to give them an incomplete, because according to course curriculum guide, I have to change it to an F.
Yeah. I would just exclude them and have it be blank because they're not really receiving a grade.
Okay, so then it just shows up on their report card as the class, but no grade.
Correct. And then when it calculates, it should calculate based on so like their final grade, if they're only in their third 9 weeks and fourth 9 weeks, their final grade would be based on those 2.
We just put them in study hall week for class.
Until
We
the
got
sem-
to be left.
Well, even if they come in like for whole 9 weeks. They wouldn't get a whole half a credit if they were only there for half the time.
But we have to give them credit for what they're there.
So we're gonna talk, so if they're there for, because you do semesters.
Right.
So if they're there for 9 weeks out of the 2, that is where the credit exception would come in. So you would give them 0.25 towards if they're,
So,
we're gonna,
yeah.
we're gonna talk about that. That's a good, I was trying to write down an example and that is a great one.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on the marks screen?
For 6 years, I never gave anybody.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Okay, so the next thing that we are going to look at is our difficulty levels, okay, or difficulty points. So I am going to type in difficulty in the go-to box. So what I want to point out and why I type that in is because these are in 2 separate areas. So the first thing that you need is your course difficulty maintenance. This is how you create your difficulty names. Okay. So, and this is in the scheduling area. So if I click on this, these are my difficulty points that you would see on that course setup. So I have AP, I have CCP, and I have my weighted. So if I click on this, so this is, I'm just giving it a name. So I'm giving it a code, giving it a name. When you use your code, there is a character limit. It might be 4, might be 5. But give it a code that you're going to understand, because in certain spots you only see the code, you don't see the name. And then in other places you can see both. But just make sure that it's something that you understand. And then is active if you're going to be using it. If you're not going to be using it, you can make it inactive. So that's our difficulty maintenance. So then I'm going to go back to difficulty. And then I'm going to go to my difficulty point scale. Okay. And again, this is in the marks because this is where I'm giving each of the marks points. Okay. So it's set up in the scheduling and now I'm going to give it the points for the marks. So I'm going to click on that. Okay. So in it sorts it by the marks column. If that's easier for you to work with, or if you want to search by the level of difficulty name, I can click here and it's going to populate those. So looking at this, you'll see that they're kind of set up a little bit differently. So my AP classes, notice I only have 2 grades. I only have an A and an A minus. So my A is worth 4.5 and my A minus is worth 4.25. So what happens if the student gets a B plus? If they are using this level of difficulty? So once they drop off, if the mark is not here on the difficulty point scale, it goes back to that mark screen and uses the point value from the mark screen. Okay, so if my B was worth 3.0, the student would get a 3.0. Okay, now CCP, you can see we start at 5.0. We go all the way to a B minus at 3.75. If they get a C plus, then they get whatever was on my mark screen. Does that make sense? So let me go back to my mark screen. So my AP only used A and A minus. Okay, so it was, what was it, 4.5 and 4.25. So if the student gets a B, they're going to get a 3.0 for it. My CCP students could go all the way to a B minus. If they got anything in the C, if they got a C plus, it would go to 2.33.
Should middle school grades go up to 5.0?
Middle school?
Yeah. For point, maintenance is 5.0 for an A. Should be 4.0.
Yeah, well, that should be on the mark screen. You need to check to see if any of your courses are using the difficulty points. So go use that CRSE report and see if any of those courses are using the whatever difficulty level that was. Okay. So does that make sense on this screen? So that's why not all of the letter grades show, because it returns back to the normal grading scale at some point in time. So if you needed to add something, you can add, but we're just going to modify one. So if I click on my CCP, I get to pick which level of difficulty. And you'll hear me saying difficulty points and level of difficulty. Don't ask me why I don't write the software, but you can see it, they call it 2 different things in different places. Okay. Then I'm going to put whatever point value it is, and then what mark they should receive. These marks are from the marks screen. Okay. You could use a mark group if you were giving like all A's 5.0s, but if you're A minus and so forth, you cannot use the mark group. And then you would save that. Okay, next we'll look at our add-on points. So again, this is a little bit different than our difficulty points, because our difficulty points are actually using this point value to calculate the GPA, where our add-on points actually get added on after the GPA is calculated. So again, this has 2 different screens. So if I look at my maintenance, okay, so if I look, oh, I wanted to go to my codes first. Let's go to our codes first. I have add-on points for CCP classes and for my honors classes. And this is just where we're naming them. Okay, CCP courses or, honors, whatever it might be. Okay, you are not going to use both. You would not use difficulty points and add-on points. You're going to use one or the other. So now if I go back to my, so when I create an add-on, so I'm going to name it, what mark it is going to be, and how many additional points they are going to get. So in this case, because it's an add-on, it's going to look at the normal mark screen. So an A was worth 4.0. But if I'm using an add-on GPA, the student who received an A now gets a 4.05. That's the difference. So it doesn't average it into the calculation. It just automatically adds it on afterwards. Okay, and like I said, we have one district using it. Some people have questioned it, so I wanted to explain it. Next is our exception credits. So this is if a student is not going to receive the credits, the full credit for the class. Okay, so again, it's in the marks, on the marks screen, but it's an exception credit. Okay, so I do have a student in context. Actually, let me change students here for a second. Okay, so say, for example, the student comes at second 9 weeks. Okay, so they weren't here first 9 weeks. They come in second 9 weeks and it's a semester class. You don't want them getting a full half credit for it or whatever it might be. So 0.5. So I would come in here. I would come to whatever class it might be. Oh, this is the wrong student. I forgot what student has my current events. I did not write that down in all my little notes, but we'll look at it. So if this student, say came into choir, it's a semester class. The class is actually worth 1, but they only attended for half of the semester or 0.75. I would come in here and I would change the amount of credits that they're going to get. So that would be their final mark. They would get on 0.7 in earned credit of 0.75 versus 1.0. Right? Does that make sense? So that's when you need to adjust what the course is worth. So whether if it's a semester class and it's 0.5 and they're only getting 0.25, or, in this case, they're only getting 3/4 of it because they were only there for 3 9 weeks. Okay. Okay, next is looking, and I'm going to remove my student from context. Next, we're just going to look at our reporting terms. Okay, so our reporting term maintenance, these are set during SYI or school year initialization, which some of you will be a part of. That will start in January, February. So our reporting terms are when the students are in class. Okay. So the code and the code name is dependent on your district and what gets carried up with SYI or what it gets named during the SYI process. Some call it quarter 1, some call it GP1, some QTR1, whatever it might be. This is what your district decided to name it during SYI. We try to have the districts keep the name the same year to year. However, but what the reporting terms are is our actual reporting area. So quarter 1, it has to have dates. So it's looking at these dates and saying, okay, grading period 1 starts on the 26th, ends on the 24th. There is 42 planned days. One of them is going to be an off day. Now we have what are called virtual terms. So if you still do interims, some districts do, some districts got rid of them. Okay, so a virtual term, even though the interim comes before the grading period, it is within GP1, so it is listed below it. Grading period 2 then starts, and within grading period 2, I have interim 2. I might have an exam at the semester break and also calculate an average. You might not have these at your district, so it all depends. And then the same thing, I would proceed down, and then the end one should be a final. Some districts do have a semester 1 final and a semester 2 final. Okay, which means that they can earn half credit at the semester break. And then they earn half credit at the end, but it's an all-year class. Okay, so again, yours might look differently. These probably shouldn't be changed at this point in time. Okay, and you can't change the dates. There's a whole process that needs to happen if something needs to change, like a snow day. For example, if a snow day happens on that, there is a process. There's a document that's on the documents page on the home page. Okay. These are used in what are called marking patterns. We set up those marking patterns for your districts based on how things should be calculated. So how much you want that average to be worth. Or if you have a semester final 1 and a semester final 2, you don't want them both worth 100% of their grade, because then it's duplicating. So they get 50 at semester break, they get 50 at the end. Okay. Okay, now we have everything set up and we are ready to start looking at our GPAs. So we're going to switch documents. We're going to go to the GPA procedural checklist. Okay, and we have a question in the chat. When we import grades from the Career Center, is the course difficulty maintenance where we go for the weighted courses? Jody, when you're importing, let me think on this for a second. When you're importing, and I would have to look at your setup for your district, but I believe you're only importing those final marks. And that goes into, I'm going to have to look into that for you. Because you're saying like if they have like a CCP class at the Career Center, so it should be worth 5.0, and it imports, it puts it into their course history.
Yeah, so there was a law that was passed recently that if they have a course that we would consider like honors here, that we have to weight that the same. So it would be like their CCP courses, or like they have an enriched English class. And so we now have to make sure that that is weighted the same as like our CCP or honors courses.
I will look at that, but I'm thinking because those grades only go into the course history, I'm thinking there's going to be something in the course history screen
Okay.
that you would modify for that.
Okay, thank
But I
you.
think I would think you would import it first, but I'll look into that. And then we are going to do a whole training on course history. So I'll make sure to point that out because I'm sure it's affecting other districts as well.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, perfect. And there was another comment in the chat. We do that with CCP classes. We manually have to change the course difficulty for each course on the course history screen. Okay, So I'll get further details on that, but that's what I'm thinking. It's on the course history screen. Without looking at it, I'm not exactly sure where, but I'm guessing it's there somewhere. Okay, so our GPAs. So our procedural checklist, it is 52 pages. You will get out of here because we're only going to go through a few of them. Okay. So when you have your GPAs set, they will copy up year to year with SYI. So it's important that they are all set the way that you want them to, and then you can just keep using them year after year. So we are going to go to task number 1 in the procedural checklist, which is verify the marks and the course setup. We already did that. So that was what we just went over with the whole beginning of the report card checklist. Okay. So we're going to skip to task number 2. It's setting up the GPA sets. So I'm going to, in my go-to, I'm just going to type in GPA set. And it should bring up your GPA set maintenance. We're going to go through several of these. We're not going to go through all of them, but it is suggested that you create a GPA set for each 9 weeks, as well as your cumulative, and if you're using a weighted cumulative score. Okay, so if you have these set up for each of the 9 weeks, you can just recalculate without having to change any of those settings. Then these will copy year to year, so you don't have to keep going through it. Okay. So, and these are school year specific. So if you did not have it set up this way last year, okay, it didn't copy over, but you can set it up for this year. So if you need to add a new one, you would click on add GPA set, but we're just going to look at our first 9 weeks. So I'm going to click on the pencil. So the first thing is we are going to give it a code. Again, make sure the code is something that you understand. For example, this is for grading period 1. So mine's called GP1. You get 4 characters. Okay. So you need to make it short, sweet, and something you understand. If you want to add a description, that is just for you. That does not print anywhere. Okay. You'll see I'll have one for our senior awards. Next is looking at the mark credit type. Mark credit type is current year. So just think of that. So this is current year. So our first line is current year. Our second line are previous years. Okay, they should reword this so it says current year. So what mark types do you want? Okay, this is another thing that they should redo. Progress 1 means grading period. It does not mean grading period 1. Progress 2 means averages. It does not mean grading period 2. Progress 3 is rarely used. I've never seen progress 4 used. And earned is your final grade. So all of your GPA sets for first, second, third, and fourth 9 weeks are going to use progress 1. Okay. So if we want to look at our GPA for this first 9 weeks, so as you guys are finishing up, first 9 weeks, is going to end. Teachers are going to submit their grades. We can then run our GPA set. We want to get it on the grade. Okay, the grading period, and then what grade levels. So in this case, I'm doing 9, 10, 11, 12. You might want to include 8th grade if you're running it for 8th grade students who are taking high school classes. So my reporting term, what am I pulling in? So we know it's going to be a grading period because I picked progress 1, but which one? So I'm going to say grading period 1. And then what type of mark is it? It's a grading period mark. I don't know a reason why you would use an ad hoc membership for a GPA. Because if you're running the GPA, like with difficulty points or something, it only applies it to the courses that the students are assigned to. You know, if you're going to do it per grade level, you would just do it per grade level versus using an ad hoc membership. So I'm not sure if anybody has an example for that, please share. We're going to go to the next tab, which is our calculations. So a majority of you are going to be on standard GPA alpha. Okay, even my numeric schools, a lot of you are just using the alpha. A few of you might have this at the GPA by course count. That is typically my elementaries and or middle schools that aren't doing a full-fledged GPA. They're just doing it by the courses that they take. Okay, I have a couple like 7th and 8th grade that use that. But that's not typical. So the typical one is the standard. If you look at Appendix D, which is page 16, that is going to give you more details of the standard and how it is calculated. Okay, and we'll go through one with looking at an actual student, but just make a note that Appendix D, page 17, actually has the standard alpha formula. Our precision. So the precision is how many decimal places that we are going out. A majority of districts use 3, some do go out to 4. Most do not go under 3 because you want that, you want to go out to that third decimal place for tiebreakers. At this point, I'm just using a straight average, so I'm not using difficulty points. If I wanted to include difficulty points, I could chuck that. And or add-on points. But remember, we're not going on a final. We're going on the 9 weeks grade. Bless you. For 9 weeks, you want to use the prorated credits. Okay. So if you look at Appendix E, which is page 26, using the prorated credits. So they talk about trimesters. I'm going to talk about quarters because I think all of us in here and online are quarters. I have elementary schools that are on trimesters, but I don't think any of them print our 700 report cards. So a prorated credit, a full year class is worth 1. Well, I'm only after first 9 weeks. So after first 9 weeks, they've only earned 0.25 of that 1 credit. So that is what it's going to calculate the GPA on of earned credit is 0.25 for that 1 credit class. If you uncheck it, then it would calculate it on the full credit and they haven't earned it yet. The appendix that I'm referring to are in the GPA Procedural Checklist. So that's the big 52-page document. And most of it are the appendices. Okay. So if you go to the Learning Center, so you can click on the question mark in the Learning Center under Procedural Checklists. So Student Information, Procedural Checklist, and then we are looking at the GPA. Okay. So then this is going to disappear. So obviously, our kids that were affected with 2020, they have now graduated. or should have graduated. So that is going to disappear. And then ignore dropped course sections. You know, if it's dropped, but they've earned some credits, you know, you want to include it. If you want to ignore any of those, you can ignore them. And then we're going to go to our next. So our source is going to be GPA. And then our ties. So this is up to your district. So you have two options. Oh, wait, you know what? Let me go back. I forgot to talk about this. Now back to our calculations tab. Sorry, this is important. I just skipped to the check boxes. Our missing marks handling. So it does default to ignore mark. So if there is no mark for the class, it's not going to calculate it in the GPA. Okay. There are two other options. One is ignore the student. So if, say, for example, Rebecca forgets to put in her grades. She's teaching language arts. She forgets to put in her grades. I'm running the GPA. Any student that's in Rebecca's class, it's not going to calculate a GPA for. It's not just going to ignore that English class. It's going to ignore the entire student. So again, you're going to be missing kids. The other one is if it is missing. So Rebecca forgot to put in her grades. Now it's going to calculate it as a 0 if you use that one. So it's going to hurt the student. So if you just use ignore mark, which it defaults to, it just ignores that specific class. So now back to rank. Okay, we're GPA and then how you want ties to be broken. Count all students as the same. So if 2 students get a 4.0, they're tied for first. Or if you say count each student separately, 2 students get a 4.0, one is ranked 1, one is ranked 2. Most districts have it, all students are the same. That is typically why we go out to 3 places, because that does break a lot of your ties. Okay. And then if you made any changes, which hoping at this point in time, you're not making changes, but you might have to, you would hit save. We're not going to include inactive students or include students with no marks. Okay. You don't want blank GPAs being created. So then what will happen is you'll come here and it'll show you when it's been last modified. That's when you've made some type of change. My guess is your column where it says last calculated might be blank. That's because it might have been modified, but it hasn't been reran, okay, or refreshed. So anytime you run report cards, you always want to refresh your GPA set. Okay, so for example, I'm going to get some kids here and we're going to look at a few things. So I am going to look at 2 students. We're going to look at Tim. So if I look at Tim and I'm going to go to his SIS student course history and go to his GPA history. This is going to show every time a GPA set was run. So you can see for the school year 2025, I have GP 1 and I have his cumulative. Why does he have a cumulative? Because I put all the grades in for him. So if I look at this student, he's very advanced. He finished all his courses already. So he's got grades for all year. Okay. But if I look at a normal student, so Chris is my normal student, just finished first 9 weeks. Now I'm going to look at that student's course history. And for 2025, I only see GP 1. Okay, so I'm going to go into that. And then I'm going to come here and I'm going to look at the student. Okay, so you will see two things here. Well, one, you're going to see your GPA set, how it was set up, what it was called, what formula it's using, which most of us are on that standard, what reporting term it was calculating for. It should be progress 1 if it is a reporting term and not a final. And then if I was adding any difficulty points into it. Okay. So you can see here, the last time the GPA was recalculated, he got a 2.86. And then based on the current configurations, they match. However, the teacher made a mistake. So the teacher put in the wrong mark for Chris and resubmitted grades. So I'm going to cheat and change it real quickly. I would never suggest changing it here. The teacher should have it updated in their grade book. Okay, so they accidentally put a C and it was supposed to be an A. So if we go back and look at the student's GPA, course history, GPA history, okay, and I'm going to click on it. It is still showing that it was the 2.86 because I have not recalculated it since 8:30 this morning. Although there was grades that have changed at 10:10 and his new GPA should be 3.264. So we get this all the time. It's not populating the correct GPA. Have you refreshed your GPA set? No. Once that happens, because this not only affects the screen that I'm looking at, this will affect if it prints, hey, congratulations, you made the honor roll. Hey, congratulations, you made the merit roll. It'll affect the GPA that prints on the report card. So if I do not refresh that, right now it will print the 2.864. And that poor kid's not going to get his donut for being on the honor roll. Okay. I don't know. Do you guys still do that? Do you guys still do that?
Yeah.
I used to be the donut buyer, so I remember. Okay. So what I would do then is go back to my GPA set. And I'm going to click on this refresh. So once I click on the refresh, nothing is going to change here because it goes to my management screen. So just like I'm running a report, I can go to settings, go to management. It ran it and it's complete. Now I can go back and look at my students. Go back to their course history and their GPA history. And now when I look at it, these two should match. Okay. And it didn't just calculate his, it calculated everybody everybody in the grade levels that I had selected. Okay. So that is very important that you refresh that before you print your report cards. Okay. So let's go back and yeah, we'll look at there. I have a couple more examples I want to show you. Actually, no, I'm going to go back. We're going to look at a different student. So I want to show you a couple examples. So if I look at Barry, so I'm going to go back to look at his GPA. So notice he doesn't have a GPA history. Okay, so he's a 9th grader, so he's new. Okay, well, if I looked at his marks, he doesn't have any marks yet. So because the teachers haven't submitted their grades. So until the teachers submit their grades, I can't do a GPA for him. Okay, so yes, I already ran it. I refreshed it, but those teachers haven't submitted, the freshman teachers, they're slacking. They haven't turned in their grades yet. So I would have to rerun that GPA set for this student. Now I have another ninth grader. So Tweedledee does have a GPA set or a GPA history, but he's a ninth grader as well. And notice what it says. It's a cumulative GPA. Well, why would he have a GPA if he's just coming to the high school now? Because he previously took his high school credit classes. So if he took algebra, if any of those classes that is marked is high school credit for those students in the middle school, it will come to their GPA. Okay. Now let's go back to our GPA set. So the next we're going to look at our cumulative GPAs. So they're set up just a little bit differently. So the first time we're going to go through it, it's going to be unweighted. So we're not going to weight it. So no difficulty points at all. It's just going to be our typical 4.0 scale. So I'm going to click on my pencil. So looking at this, I have my course code again. I have 4 digits, and then I can give it a name. I can put in a description here. If I want to type in unweighted, I can do that. Okay. Now remember, my mark credit type is the current year. So I want to look at earned credits. Do my students at this point in time in the school year have any earned credits? No. We're only at the end of the first 9 weeks. Okay, but that's okay. The GPA is only on earned. I want to now look at previous years. And I want to see what the students have done last year and the year before that. So I only want to see their earned credits. Then I'm going to pick my grade levels. And then what term are we pulling these from? Well, it's going to be a final grade. And again, right now, we don't have a final grade. And then what mark type is it going to show? It's going to show that final. Okay. If I go to next.
Back real quick.
Sure.
Reporting terms, since we changed that semester 1 final, semester 2 final, do I can move those over
Yes.
with the final for that, or take that one out?
So the question was, we have a district, they just switched this year to semester final 1, semester final 2. So those would be your reporting terms. So those are going to come over. You don't need final here because they're really not getting a final mark.
Or is that stay there because the previous?
Yes, you can do that because the previous, and if you have any 8th graders, that would use that as well. And then the mark type would be the final, and it knows to go to semester final 1 and semester final 2. Okay. Good question. The next screen on my calculations is basically the same. So I'm setting it up standard with 3 decimal places. Ignore the mark if it's missing. Notice the only thing that is different is my use prorated credit is unchecked because we don't need to prorate it because we want them on their earned credit. So if they're earning 1, that's what the GPA is calculated on. Okay. Now, because we're looking at earned marks, we now have use manual course history mark credit details or the manual course history course credit. So the difference between this is if you look at I think it is appendix. It's appendix I, which is the very last page, page 53. See, I told you we get through it all. So the difference between these are if the marks detail is based on the credit percentage that you have given on that course details page or the course history details page. So if they only earned half a credit, student moves in, they're only getting a half a credit, you're giving them half a credit on that course, history details. That's what it's going to calculate the GPA on. I don't know anybody that is using the course credit because that student moves in halfway through the year. It's going to calculate it on one full credit, and they're not getting a full credit. They're only getting a half a credit. Okay. So that's where it explains it a little bit better there for you. Then I'm going to go to my next. Everything is going to be set up as is. Okay, GPA, count all students the same. And then if you did make changes, you would save. Then I would come back to my GPA set. And then again, before I run report cards, especially at the end of the year, I want to make sure that I refresh this. Or if I'm running transcripts, which is another class, but you would refresh this. Because again, this is based on earned. So if I look at any of my students, even if I do a refresh, if I look at any of my students, so let me pull up Coriander. So if I'm looking at him, did I get him full grades? Oh, I might have. Oh, okay. So when I go to his cum, okay, notice it has all the previous years because we asked for the previous years, but notice there's nothing for this school year because he doesn't have any final grades yet. Okay. So that's the difference with the cum. It is looking at that final grade, looking that it is earned, it's included in the GPA. Now, what's the difference? So I'm going to go back to my GPA set. What's the difference between the 4-point scale and the weighted scale? When I come here to edit this one, my weighted, everything is going to be the same. So current year is earned, previous years earned, reporting term, the final or semester final 1, semester final 2, my final. The only difference is on the calculations page, I am going to use difficulty points. I'm going to check that box. That's the only difference between the weighted and the unweighted. So now it's going to go look at a student. Okay, it's going to look at a student to see if they have any classes that are using difficulty points, and it's going to adjust their GPA. And then your rank would be the same as all your other screens. So let's look at a student. I want to make sure I have the right student. Oh, no, it was. Come on, Ben. Okay. So you can see the student has a CCP class. So he's got physics CCP. Okay. If I go to that course screen, okay, we looked at this at the beginning, the courses. So I'm going to look at that CCP class. Okay. And on my marks tab, I have the level of difficulty, which is CCP. So then if I put in my difficulty, so in A, first my CCP level of difficulty is worth 5 points, and A minus is 4.5. And then my B plus 4.25 and so forth. Okay, so let's look at this student. Need to make sure I gave him his final mark. I did not. Yep. What should we give him? What grade should he have?
It's physics.
But then he wouldn't get difficulty points.
Let's see.
Oh, you're mean.
CCP physics? That's hard.
He's a nerd.
Oh,
We'll give him an A minus. Okay, because remember the A minus was what, 4.5. Okay, and it again, it is going on that earned credit. Okay, so let's go through. We're gonna look at our let me refresh my GPA sets because I just updated a grade.
your kids' GPAs were always messed up because Mary.
Probably, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back. So now I'm going to look at my student, go to their course history. Let's look at, we have our non-weighted and our weighted. So our non-weighted, he is getting a 3.66. Okay. And then, so 3.66 with one class. And then if I go back to his weighted, he is getting that 4.5 with that same class. But notice up here that it is using the difficulty points. So this is telling me that it's using that. Okay. The last one that I want to look at, and then we'll start running our report cards, is awards. Okay. These can be set up 2 different ways depending on what your district does for awards. I set it up like senior awards would be before the end of the 4th 9 weeks. Okay, so their 4th 9 weeks are not in. You might do something for all of your students and do the first 3 9 weeks for them. Okay, so it just depends. I'll kind of show you both situations. So I'm going to look at my awards. And you can see I have a description. These are senior awards based on their first 3 9 weeks. Okay, so it's their progress for the first 3 9 weeks, 1, 2, and 3. And then for their freshman, sophomore, and junior year, it's based on their earned credit. And then what mark types am I looking at? Now I'm looking at both the final grade and the grading period grade. Now, if you're doing this for underclassmen and you just want to base it off of the 9 weeks, the 3 9 weeks, it would look like this. So it would just pull the grading period grades for the first 3. Okay. How is this different than just saying, well, let me see what their GPA is at the end of 3rd 9 weeks? Well, at the end of 3rd 9 weeks, it's only including the 3rd 9 weeks. It's not a cumulative. Okay. So that's the difference. So, and then again, for seniors, if you want to have that rolling, that cumulative GPA, you'll want that earned in there as well. And then I don't think we need to go through the other tabs. The other tabs, you would do accordingly if you're going to use the difficulty points or not. Okay. And the rank would be the same. Okay. So that is GPAs. Sure.
when I look at, my GPA where it lists all the kids in their, in order,
Yes.
the unweighted doesn't pop. Why would that be? Like, there's just nothing there, as I was trying to enter it for like kids who are in college, applying to college. GPA rank and list, go to unweighted, which it is set up. I've never had that.
Go back to your unweighted GPA set. Earned. So that should pull in the previous. Go to your calculations. I'm not sure. Let me run mine and see. So we're looking at, and I'm gonna show you guys two reports. So we're looking right now at the GPA and rank list. So if I run this for. Did you just refresh your unweighted scale?
I did. Oh, no, I didn't. Let's see.
Now try it. And mine could be a little different because I staged the students, so obviously some of them have final grades. There it goes. Okay. So again, so our GPA and rank, so if I go to, without going to student, if I go to course history, then my GPA rank is in here. Okay, so I can run it if I just want to see first 9 weeks for a specific grade. Okay, this is just a screen visual. Okay, so that's going to show me what their grades are. If I go back to my course history menu, then I can go into an individual student as well. If I have a student in context, if not, it'll ask you for a student. Okay. The other one, the other important report is your R303. Oops, too many 303s. So this is your honor roll report. So what GPA set do I want to look at? And we have not set up our honor rolls yet. That's next. What student status is? So usually active non-residents. Okay. And then I can run that. I do have my honor roll set up, so it'll probably look fine. But we're going to get into that next. Okay. So here's their GPA and what honor roll they've managed to go to.
Most high schools gotten rid of honor roll because of CCP classes.
I don't, honestly, I don't
Like, you know,
know.
a kid might have only 2 high school classes and 3 CCP. Like, they would be on the 9 weeks honor roll,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I don't, you know what? I honestly don't know. Is any, I mean, you guys can put in the chat that if you didn't hear the question, are districts getting away from honor roll because a lot of the kids are taking the CCP classes? So just if you take a second and put something in the chat, just let us know.
So
Okay.
then you're only doing it twice instead of,
For the CCP, everybody
Right.
else still gets.
okay, that's what we went to too, yeah.
So Green is still doing honor rolls. Okay, and Hillsdale said, I don't know if you could hear that, but Hillsdale said they are only doing it for the CCP classes for students at semester time.
Yeah, well, we saw that.
Yeah. Traditional students get it every 9 and then CCP get it twice. And it looks like a couple of them are still doing honor rolls. Okay, so let's go set up our honor rolls. So, a few things. So again, honor rolls, carry over during SYI. So I'm gonna, in my go-to box, I'm gonna type in honor roll. And I'm gonna go to my honor roll maintenance. These can be set up a couple different ways. So I kind of have them both set up for you. Okay, so we have our all A students. Okay, so if you need to add a new honor roll, you can by clicking the add button. If not, you can just look at one that you already have. Again, it is suggested that these are created for each 9 weeks. So you can see I have all A's for each 9 weeks, honor roll and merit roll for each 9 weeks. That way you don't have to worry about adjusting them every time that you need to run it. So if I click on the edit pencil, that's going to allow me to, this is what it would look like if you're creating. Give it the code. Okay, again, something that you are going to understand. So this is all A's for first quarter. What type? Okay, I have mine set to GPA. I have seen some that set theirs to marks. But we're going to go with GPA. Minimum number of courses. Okay, be careful with this. I have mine set at the lowest at 1. If you're running this, what is it? Student athletes have to have a minimum of 5 credits. So you might want to set yours at 5. Okay. So that's just how many courses they have to have. The minimum number of marks, that's the marks that are actually filled in. So I have mine set to 0 because that'll do any that are blank. Now, this is not required, but this is how I set up the all A's. The minimum GPA, I put that in. So if they got all A's, they have to have a 4.0. Okay, they can't have A minuses, they can't have a B because it's not going to calculate to a 4.0. The GPA set that is being used is first 9 weeks. So this is where you set it. And of course, that was not using difficulty points. So I know nobody can get over a 4.0. The precedence. So this is the order that it is going to look at to see where the student qualifies. 1 is the most restrictive. Okay, so usually our all A's, if you don't have an all A's, if you have the honor roll first, that would be your precedence of 1. So what it will do is look at the lower precedence. Hey, did this student qualify? If they say yes, then it goes up to precedence 2. Did the student qualify? If they said no, then they stay at precedence 3 at whatever that honor roll that was set up. If you say yes again, it'll go look at the criteria for precedence 1. Okay. So with that being said, you wouldn't want to ignore it because you would want them to go in that order. You don't want them to be on merit roll, honor roll, and all A's. So if I ignored the precedence, it would show that student on all 3 of them. And these I've never changed. I just leave it 100. And your honor roll message. So whatever message, this will print on the report card. This will also print on your honor roll, your 303 report. So that's where that comes from.
So mine said honor roll, I just added the first 9 weeks just now.
Mm-hmm.
And then it said first 9 weeks,
Here.
yes. And then Pam always struggled, because she's like, yeah, don't sleep when she runs this report. Well, she was running first 9 weeks over and over and over.
Probably, yes. And that's why so my second 9 weeks is
Yeah, we
already set
never-
up. Yeah, it was probably never changed. Yeah,
So we should have 4 for every 9 weeks for honor roll and merit roll.
yes. You don't have to, but it's strongly suggested.
Otherwise, you have to go in and change it.
Yeah. Yep. Because when you're picking like your report card, you say what honor roll do you want to pull
Right.
from? And if you forgot to modify it, it's pulling whatever it says here. Okay, so once you're done with that, I'm gonna cancel out of here. You could go into the exclusion marks right from here, but I'm gonna show you from this screen. So the same one that I just set up, I'm gonna click on exclusion marks. So you will notice in this one, I don't have any exclusions. Well, if they're getting all A's, shouldn't they not be able to get a B or a C or any of those? So why wouldn't I have exclusions? Because I set up the honor roll so that the minimum grade point average is 4.0. So I don't have to put all the other grades to exclude. Okay. Now, we're going to look at an honor roll. Okay, so this is a little bit different. Okay, so I'm going to click on edit, still for my first 9 weeks for honor roll. Okay, everything is set up the same. If I want to put a GPA in there, I can. Okay, what GPA set? And now since this is down a level, I'm going to put the precedence set at 2. So now let's look at the exclusions for this. I can get a 3.5, but I don't want them to have any C's. So this one, I've included some letters. So they can get a 3.5 with some B's and stuff in there, but if they get a C, nope, they can't be on the honor roll. Even if they have all A pluses and 1 C, I don't know what that would calculate to, but they can't. Okay. D's and F's, it wouldn't calculate enough for a 3.5. Okay. And then merit roll is the same process. So same thing, I'm looking at a minimum of 3.0. Okay, first 9 weeks. This is now set to the precedence of 3 because it's the bottom. It's going to look at that, yes or no, then move up and then move up. So now if I look at these exclusion marks, notice they are allowed to have 2 C's. No D's, no F's, but they can have 2 C's. So when you add a mark, so let's do our C plus, let me remove that. So when you add it, so I'm going to say for C plus, they're allowed to have 2. Exclude and exclude do the same exact thing. So it doesn't really matter what it's set to. I don't know why they don't just take 1 out of it. And then I'm going to say add. And now you can see. So maybe maybe they're only allowed 1 C minus. So I'm going to change that one. So my C minus, they're only allowed 1. So you can see here, 2 C pluses, 2 C's, or a C minus. But the minimum GPA still has to be 3.0. Okay. And then again, now that you have your GPA set, when you run that R303, it should show the students if they're on the honor roll or merit roll or all A's. Okay, now remember Chris, I changed his grade. Okay, so remember I upped his one grade from a C to an A. So he's now just getting by to get into the merit roll. So I'm gonna go back and change him back. And that was this class. Okay, so 2 C's, so he should qualify, depending. So I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna show you guys a couple things. So if I rerun that R303, okay, first 9 weeks, we'll do any of the honor rolls, my actives. I'm gonna say submit. Look at Chris Bacon. Look at his grades. He's still on the merit roll. What didn't I do after a grade was changed? You have to refresh. Okay, so that is so important that anytime if a teacher was absent, grades were due yesterday, a teacher was absent, you open up the window so they can submit their grades, you have to rerun that GPA set. Because remember, their grades are coming from GradeBook into student information. Okay, so then I'll go back to my GPA set. I'm going to refresh it. I'm going to rerun my R303. Okay, and now Chris isn't even on here because he didn't qualify for merit roll. Okay. And the appendices in here basically goes over like why it wouldn't, and it talks about like refreshing and so forth. Same with the GPA checklist. Those are both at the end. Okay. Now that we have all that set up, now you are ready to print your report cards. So I'm going to close these out. We're going to come back here and we're going to switch documents to the report card procedural checklist. We already went through pages 2, 3. We are going to look at the bottom part of 4 because we defined our GPA sets and honor rolls. The one thing I did want to mention is the comment maintenance screen. So if you go into the Learning Center and type in comment maintenance, it will give you the step-by-step, but these are those comments that these teachers put in, like doing great work. Hey, have a good summer, you know, incomplete project or whatever it might be. If you need to update those, they have to be updated prior to the teacher submitting. Okay. So comment maintenance. Okay. So before we run our report cards, there are different reports that we can look at to see, you know, if a teacher submitted their grades, if anything is missing, if things look correct. One is our R703. You're thinking, I've used this before. Wait, class list? I give this to my teachers at the beginning of the school year. Yes, it's the same report. However, it's a different layout. If you choose layouts 1 or 4, it will populate the grades. So you can quickly look at each of the teachers' rosters to see if they've submitted. So I'm going to leave it at format 4. I'm looking for my GP1 reporting term. and my grading period marks. I'm not going to do a specific class or a specific period. I'm going to leave everything else as is. Okay. If you want to put a comment here, you can. So a lot of times this comment is what you put for the teachers when you printed out their class lists. So you can remove it for this. And a lot of times this is just a visual for you to double check and, you know, go tell so-and-so that they forgot to submit their grades. So I'm going to submit this. Go to my management. This one might take a minute or two.
There's one where you can just choose a report, like, I forget what it's called, where you just choose missing grades and it shows every teacher and the kid who didn't have a grade
Yes.
identified. something.
Yes, that is our next one,
Okay.
which I might run. Because this one's taking forever. I did run it earlier, but it's off my list. Oh, there it is. So if I'm looking at this, you know, I'm looking at this teacher here, it's going to print out the students and all of their grades. So you can quickly go through their class rosters and see all the grades that have been submitted. Okay. So that's one. So that is your 703. The one that Rachel just said, hey, can I look at just the missing students? That is your R302B. So A302A is by student, 302B is by teacher. So I can show only the missing marks, which mine is kind of opposite because a lot of my students don't have marks in, but so I can say only the missing marks for GP1 for my grading, oops, not interim. For my grading period, it's the chairs. Okay, and I'm going to submit that. Just leave it as is. This one still hasn't completed yet. That's very weird. Oh, there. I don't know why that one hasn't. Okay, so then this is going to show what the course is and then the students. I have a lot of them because I don't have all of them in. Okay. So that is the R302B, and then you select, you can say only the missing marks. And then the last one that I am going to show you, and then we'll look at our settings for our report card, is the R112. So this is just kind of a mini example of the report cards. So I'm just going to look at first 9 weeks. Okay. You're going to pick your GPA set over here. It will only populate the GPA sets that have that reporting term selected. Okay. So for example, this only allows me to do second and awards. Notice for my fourth 9 weeks, awards is not available because we didn't select it. Okay. So what kind of mark types? If I want the GPAs to print, never refresh the GPA results from any of your report screens. So here or the R700, it takes forever, slows down the system. Just click on that little refresh button, go to your GPA set before you start running any of these reports. Okay, and then I'm just going to pick this up. If it takes forever, I have one set. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so again, it's just it's a compressed report card. So I can look here at Coriander, all his grades are here, here's his GPA and so forth. So it's not set up exactly how your report card would look, but you can quickly go through your students and see who's been submitted and who hasn't. You can see I don't have a lot in here. Okay, but again, it's just a mini, so you can kind of check things over before you do your print, if you are actually still printing. Okay. On page 5, it does talk about using the student's marks screen to update student marks. I would not suggest that unless it's a case of an emergency. So the teacher's going to be out for the rest of the year and they didn't, don't have a sub yet, and you got to get those marks in. But if any point in time, if that is recalculated on the report card entry screen from the teacher's grade book, it will override what was in student information. So just be careful with that. Again, emergency only. Okay. So we're going to move on to our R700. You will also hear us call these DASL report cards. So we have GradeBook report cards and we have DASL report cards. So these are our DASL report cards. So typically middle school, high school. I know I have Hillsdale, Loudonville. You guys have some of your intermediate, I'll call them intermediate students, like 4, 5, 6. They are getting the R700s. Okay. So that is when the teacher's grades get submitted back to student information. Okay. So we're going to look at this. We're going to leave it on the custom. Your report layout. Okay. Most of our districts, most of them have custom reports. So you can see with your initials, BRHS, that's Black River High School, BRMS, Black River Middle School. Most of you guys have some type of custom. If you are printing a report card and you see a rhinoceros in the upper left-hand corner, you do not have the right report layout selected. So you want to find yours. If you don't know which one you use, okay, you can use any of them. They're available to you. A few of them do have some custom text in there. So obviously you wouldn't want to use those. But the fixed N2 is a good default one if you don't know which one to use. It contains most of your information, like honor roll information, GPA information, attendance, and of course the grades. Okay. So I'm going to use this one for an example for this. So once you pick your layout, it should automatically determine if it's portrait or landscape. I'm not sure if we have any middle school, high school that do portrait, but we might. It will automatically default to it when the report layout is picked. The school year for credits. So we are working in the 25-26 school year. This is not an interim report card. And then what reporting term to show comments. Okay, so we're going to say GP1. The marks type to show comments. It's our grading period. You can actually leave that blank. Okay, it's not really needed, but since we're just kind of getting in the habit of using grading period, we can just throw that in there. This one, reporting term to show marks. Okay, even though it's not required, I would suggest doing all 4 grading periods plus your final. Or if you are a district that has the semester final 1 and semester final 2. That way your report card looks consistent for all reporting periods. If you only pick GP1, it makes the GP1 column like this wide. And you guys can't see it on Zoom, but it takes up the whole width of the reporting period area. Okay, so I do suggest all of those. And then which mark types to show marks. In this case, I'm just showing my grading period and my final. Okay, I'm not putting an average or an exam on the report card. Course types, you can leave everything over to the left. It will pull in courses, it'll pull in CCP classes, because our case management, our lunches, study halls, they don't have grades associated with them. Okay, this is where we get into what you want it to look like. Okay, so show required marks only. Yes, you want to see your marks. Okay, this one is not really needed, so it could be set to no. Okay, the report card if the student has no marks or comments. Okay, so they don't have anything, you don't want to see it. Print regular courses from prior course term that has no marks or comments. So this is from prior, so last year or last semester. Okay, you don't want to see those. Okay, so for example, a kid drops, we'll say Spanish 2, it's first semester, because they already know it. So second semester comes around and they're in Spanish 3. You don't want Spanish 2 to show up on the report card. Print regular courses from the current course term that has no marks. So this is up to you. This will print what is on their schedule, even if there are no marks for it. So for example, that student that moved in first 9 weeks, right at the end of the first 9 weeks, they're going to be in the art class, but they don't have a grade yet. It's going to print art. It's going to show a blank spot for it. Okay, and then print regular courses from the future. Okay, so that again is up to you. If future course terms, if you want to see what classes they have for second semester. So that's up to you. Print course history that has no marks, you don't want to see that. Okay. And then the dropped is kind of the same as the printing with no marks. The dropped, the one that you do want to include is any courses that they currently dropped in the past or current course term of this year. So if they started taking Spanish and they dropped it at semester time, you want to see that grade. So you want that to print on the report card. If they dropped a course in August that they, dropped in the future and you don't want to see that, you can say no. And then same with the prior years. I would not suggest separating reporting pattern or marking patterns. So that would be, it would print all your first semester grades, then it would print second semester grades and all your grades. So it'd look like it's 3 different report cards on one. The require update history. So if this is flagged yes in the course, it's going to print. If you mark this as no, it doesn't care if it's marked for update history or not. Same with the is high school credit. So be very careful with this one with your middle school kids. Okay. So for example, your middle school kids, if it's all coming on one report card, Algebra 1 is for high school credit and none of the other ones are, you're going to want to set it to no. Because it's only going to print algebra. Does that make sense? So just that's the confusing one with our middle school kids. So high school, yeah, you want it for high school credit because you don't want coaches classes and caseload classes to print. They're not for high school credit. But the only time you might have to change it is for our middle school kids that are taking those high school classes. Okay.
Will those kids have 2 different GPAs?
No, when you create your GPA set, you can bring in, it'll bring in their 8th grade. I showed Barricade. He had his algebra 1 from last year. It was a earned credit and it came over to his GPA this year. As long as that class is high school credit. Okay. Then here is our GPA sets. So I'm going to do first 9 weeks. Our honor roll is our first 9 weeks. I said this earlier, never refresh your GPA from here. It'll take your report cards forever to populate. So you always want to make sure that you refresh it on the GPA set screen before you come here to populate your report cards. Attendance, if you just want 1 grading period or all. Okay. And then the attendance cutoff date can be blank. Unless you're running an interim, it is required of when it's going to cut off, but it will cut off at the end of the reporting term. So the 24th is the end of my reporting term, so it automatically populates that day. We don't use period attendance in DASL. That's only in GradeBook. And then what students are you going to print for? If you have multiple counselors, such as our bigger schools, you might want to print by counselor, say, hey, here's all of Sherry's, here's all of Celeste's, you know, you can print it that way. And then, did I skip a section? No. Okay, you can print by ad hoc reports if you needed to, if you have something set up. Right here, print the called name for the first name. So if they have a called name in student information on the general tab, it will print that name instead of whatever their first legal name is. So if their name is Michael and they go by Johnny, and that's their called name, it will print Johnny. So that's up to you. If you have student IDs, if you leave this blank, you can print by grade levels. These are just my students that have grades in it. So those are my students. But if you just leave it blank, you can print by grade level. The homeroom date, just make a note of this one. If you are printing after the end of the school year, maybe you're printing for permanent record files, whatever it might be, this homeroom date needs to be within the school year. So if you're working on June 2nd and your last day of school was May 31st, you need to have May 31st or earlier. Comments or grading scales, this depends on what your report card layout looks like, where those will print. Print blank report cards for unpaid fees. Do we really do this anymore? I mean, with ParentAccess, are you guys restricting parents from seeing report cards? Are you hiding them from ParentAccess? I mean, I'll show you that as well, but you can print out a blank report card if you wanted to. If you only want to print for students that requested a hard copy, so that is on the additional tab on the student's profile. Remember, we saw include in GPA, include in honor roll. It said print paper report card. If you only want to print those that are checked yes, you can check that and it only prints those. It'll populate the report cards for everybody, but it'll only print out the ones that you needed. This section we are going to skip with the student graduation eligibility. There'll be a separate training on that. We'll talk about that. It'll be a little bit later on. I gotta prep for that one. Okay. Improve performance by separating the report cards by grade levels. So this will automatically filter them out. So if I say yes, then I have to pick 9, 10, 11, 12. So that'll separate, I'll print all the 9th grade, then I'll print all the 10th and so forth. If you leave it off, it's going to go by your sorting options. Okay, so in this case, I want it by homeroom, then grade, then student name. Okay, if you choose that, it's going to go by grade. If you choose this, you have to have grade level selected. Okay. I am not going to hit submit. Okay, I can. If I want to preview it, I will. I'll let it run. Okay, so it's running in the background. Okay, so it's in my management screen, it's running. But once you have this all set up, you saw what it looked like, you're like, okay, that's great. I have the correct report card layout. I have all this set. Don't hit submit, click on load settings. So if I click on load settings, this is where I can save it. Okay, so I'm going to come to my load settings and I'm going to give it a name. And I'm going to say, be aware. No, I'm not going to type that, but I'm saying be aware what you type here for the name is what shows on ParentAccess. So you don't want to put messed up run or something like that. You want to make sure that it is something clear. Okay. So I'm going to say first QTR 2526. I'm going to uncheck private. You'll see why here in a second. I'm going to hit save. We'll talk about old ones here in a little bit. Okay, so notice I hit save. Notice that some of these have items with it. It tells me what term it is. It tells me that it's been archived. It has a status of complete, but the one I just created does not. If I click on the name itself, it takes me back to the selection tab. If I click on the pencil, it allows me to schedule it for ParentAccess. So I'm going to click on the pencil. So again, this is the name that's going to show. I'm going to say schedule report cards. If I had private checked, it will not allow me to schedule the report cards. So schedule the report cards. GP1. It will automatically default to the end of the reporting term. Okay. Now, if you're anything like most districts, the end of the reporting term is October 24th. The teachers usually have a few days to get their grades in, and the report cards go home that following Friday. So I would say, okay, I don't want the report cards to be visible to parents until the 31st. Okay, so think about that. It's going to default to the end of the reporting term. You want to pick the archive date of when you want the parents to see it. So when you would physically hand out the report cards is what the archive date should be. But in this case, we're going to tweak the system and I'm going to archive it for today so it runs. So I'm going to put it today. I'm going to hit save. And then you will see now all that information has filled in. What term, when it's going to be archived, and what the status is. If I go back in there, so I click back on the pencil, if I'm like, you saw a student, remember Chris Bacon, I kept switching his grade back and forth, and you're like, oh, I need to rerun his report card again. You would just come in here and say run ready jobs. Don't rename it, because I'll show you. If you rename it, then it's going to populate it twice in ParentAccess. Leave everything the same, just hit rerun and it will override any changes. All the other ones that don't have changes will remain the same. Okay.
So you don't ever do run ready jobs unless there's some change you want to make.
Correct. Yes. This will force it to run right now. If not, If I don't click run ready job, it will print on, or it'll run on October 31st or whatever date you picked. Okay. Yeah, so if you just click on save, it will run on the date that's in the archive date. If you need to run it today because something happened, you need to change it, then that's when you click on run ready jobs. Okay. So we are going to look.
Okay, so that's like you do that after you run the report cards, but.
Yeah.
Print.
Correct. Yes. Well, or we could set these up now. So if you like what it looks like and you're like, oh, this is how, and then you can see I set it up for first 9 weeks, second 9 weeks, third 9 weeks,
Beginning.
and it's going to run all by itself on the date that report cards are supposed to go home. Kind of like our GPA sets. We set it up for every year. So there's a question in the chat that if you're printing hard copies, does any of this change? No. So I would still do this because this is going to populate it to ParentAccess. But if we're going to actually print physical hard copies, I would just click on my name of the load setting. Everything is set because of that load setting. And then I would just hit submit, and that will populate. And I think I did that. It was running in the background. Okay, so then that would print this hard copy of your report cards. Okay, but the scheduling is the important part for getting it to ParentAccess. The other thing that it does, and so let's scroll back up. Let's see if it's completed yet. It's still going. So the other thing that it does is it populates in the I want to menu for that student. So, and when you are scheduling it, it populates that that report card for you to see, for anybody else in the office to be able to see that students on the I want to menu. So, oh, it didn't take this long this morning. So in the meantime, while that is processing, okay. So what I would suggest, if you set it up once, you run through it, you have, you know, your demo students, okay? So when you look at my report card, see how it has GP 1, 2, 3, 4, and final? If you don't select all of those on right here for the reporting terms, GP1 would go all the way across all these columns, and this would be a nice wide column. It looks weird. So that is why I suggest for this one, you choose everything that you want on the report card. So now that I have my load settings created for my first 9 weeks, I'm going to click on the name. I am going to change this to GP2. This stays the same. This stays the same. These change to GP2. All of this stays the same. You can put your absence cutoff dates if you want, or you can leave it blank because we're not doing interims. Okay. The homeroom date can stay, everything. And again, ignore my student IDs. Then I'm not going to hit submit. I'm going to come back because I made these changes. I'm going to come back to my load settings and I'm going to save it. And I'm going to call this second quarter 25-26. Okay. So now I have this created. If I click on my pencil, okay, so that's what's going to show on ParentAccess. I want to schedule it for my second 9 weeks. The second 9 weeks ends on January 16th, but the report cards are going to go home that following Friday. So it'll automatically run on January 23rd. I'm not going to hit run ready. I'm just going to hit save. And now it's scheduled to run on January 23rd. Okay. And then, so now this is completed. So let's see what my report cards have done. So I'm gonna get my student in context. Chris is here. He's in context. Because I did that scheduling, I now can view the latest report card and it'll populate here. If I go to GradeBook, on the principals page, I can view ParentAccess. Let's look at Bacon. I'm going to say view information. And if I go to my report card, it has now populated. So remember that name, it shows there. Okay. And then if I click on it, here's the report card there. Okay. Now, if you make a mistake, so again, we have his report card up. You know, English, you got a C. You're like, oh boy, he was supposed to have an A. I need to rerun it. Okay. Remember, you have to refresh that GPA set. Okay. So if you change the grade, refresh the GPA set, and then you will come back in here, back to my R700. I'll go to my load settings. I can click on the pencil and I would just say rerun and it will override. Don't rename it. Okay. So I'll show you why you don't want to rename it. Let's look at Mickey Mouse. Oh, okay. So let's look here. Let me switch over to GradeBook. So we're going to look at Mickey Mouse. If you rename that, this is what is going to happen. Each time you rename it, it populates a whole new one. So just because you're trying to rerun it for one kid whose grade got changed, now all the students have multiple grading periods. Okay. So how do you fix this? Okay. There's two things that need to be done. Okay. Notice he's got 3. And I'm not expecting you guys to memorize these, but remember it's first quarter, 24-25, 24-25 first quarter, the opposite way, and then first quarter 2024. So remember there's 3 of them. So let's go back and look at our load settings. So my old load settings. Okay, so here is 24-25 first quarter 2024, but we're missing first quarter 24-25. If I delete this, okay, so I'm just going to come here and I'm going to delete first quarter 2024. Delete. It's gone. And you can only delete your own too, by the way. If you need me to clean up because there's old ones in there, just send me a ticket and I'll clean them up for you. So we only have the 24-25. You're like, oh, great. That should fix everything. Go back to my paper history. 3 of them are still there. Because what happens when the scheduling process runs, it actually archives the copies of those report cards with each of the names. Okay, so this is the next step. And it is all in this document and it's also in the PowerPoint. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is go to my archive. Okay, and enter. View my archived report cards. Oh, I'm sorry. This was from last year. Remember, we were in 24-25. So I got to switch. That was my error. So now when I pull up 24-25, look, I archived it 3 different times because instead of just hitting rerun, I renamed it each time and it ran it each time. So in order to get rid of them, and it's showing how many students got that report card, in order to get rid of them, I have to delete them from here. So which one did I want to keep? I want to keep this one. So I'm going to trash this one. Say yes. And nope, this was the other one I wanted to get rid of. Okay, so say yes. So now I only have 24, 25. If I refresh my parent access screen, I now only have one. That's how you get duplicates. Okay. So then again, if I go to my 25, 26, I should only see that one, and it ran it for my 4 students. Okay. If you wanted to rename something because you're like, oops, I renamed it, mess up, you can come here. As long as the student's name is not in context, you can come here and rename it. And that is what will populate in parent access. Okay. So again, the rest of everything that I went through after we saw our R700, the procedural checklist has everything in details, kind of what I said, just all typed out. And then the archiving and deleting those is all at the end of this document. And if you want screenshots, so you want individual screenshots of kind of what I just went through with the archiving, again, that is my report cards for parent access, has all those screenshots on there. Okay. Questions? Any questions on Zoom?